Across the alley from the old Ryman Auditorium is this little place called Tootsie's Orchid Lounge. And just about anybody that ever played the Opry has put in some time here at Tootsie's. Even if you don't drink, there's some pretty potent conversation. It's always been a place where singers and songwriters hang out, and today's no exception. I was glad to run into some of my old friends. Why don't you tell us a little bit about who Tootsie was?
Tootsie was a surrogate mother to all the starving young artists and writers that came to town. Plus, she was sort of the queen bee for the stars. You know, the Opry was right next door. And in between sets over there, the Opry stars would slip over and get them a cool one, you know, in the heat of the evening.
And I found a pretty good song here one time.
Yeah, what did you find here?
A little burr-headed guy by the name of Willie Nelson.
Oh, that's right.
Sang me a tune right up steps here called Hello Walls. Yeah. And it became one of my first love affairs in Nashville. Because after I recorded it, I loaned Willie some money. And when he made his first check for about $20,000, I was sitting over in the booth. And he came over and grabbed me and bent me backward and French kissed me, and it was really...
Let me tell you a Johnny Cash story.
Okay,
I always thought if I ever wrote a book, I'd put this one in first. But Nashville is a town of songwriters, and they're everywhere. And they're all looking for a star to lay a song on them. You've all met them. Now, Johnny Cash used to go to church out here on Dickerson Road where Jimmy Snow, Hank Snow's son, was the preacher. And at some point in the service, it was customary to ask who the visitors were and to invite all the visitors to come down and pray if they felt so inclined. Well, this call was issued and the visitor did go down, and he's kneeling at the prayer rail, and Big John got up from his place and he went down there and just eased in next to him as the man's praying. And he's kind of got his head ducked there, and I guess in his peripheral vision it begins to dawn on him that Johnny Cash is right next to him. And he's right in the middle of his prayer. He said, "John, John, I've got a song for you." Who's got the string bean story?
But the string bean story that was funny, String was always kidding with everybody. Like one night he'd come down to the Opry and he'd come up to me and real serious, he said, "Chief," he said, "you know what?" He said, "I'm going to have to quit playing so good on the Opry." He said, "I'll tell you what," he said, "Earl Scruggs and Grandpa Jones are stealing me blind." He said, "I'll hit an original lick and I'll hear it 3 times for you."
Can I tell you one short one?
Yeah,
This is true. He was sitting in his kitchen one morning, Grandpa Joe, drinking coffee, and a goat got loose up there somewhere, and it came up on his back porch, and it seen itself in the glass, and it came through right into the kitchen, and Grandpa turned around and said, "Why, come in, Billy."
I sang about Chris Christopherson. I was building a building out where I had Music City News, the newspaper, and I hired him to put paneling up in the building. $1.25 an hour. It's the truth. And he'd go back there and he'd work a while, and I'd hear the hammer and stuff, and he'd come up to my office and he'd sing me a song. And I said, "Son, that thing is horrible." I said, "If you're going to learn how to write, you're going to have to go down to Tootsie's Orchid Lounge or Lion Balls and hang out with the winos." See, because he's a rogue scholar, very intelligent boy. He's an officer in the Navy and everything. I said, "You're going to have to live there." He'd go back and he'd hammer and saw a little bit, about 30 minutes, back with another song. I finally said, "I'm going to tell you what, son, all I want to hear out of you singing is that hammer and that saw back there working." And foolish me, I could have had him for $50 a week, too. But he came down and got to hanging around. Next thing, helped me make it through the night. All them songs came out of Chris Christopherson.
Well, there was a janitor, probably you fired him. There came a janitor at Columbus Studios.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think he was a janitor for a while.
One night, we were at Columbia. Merle was recording one of your songs, and Chris came in and he knocked over a coat and got on his hands and knees and started wiping it up. He couldn't forget that he used to do it.
But you know, there's one person we never talked about that I guess is the greatest songwriter in the world that has anything to do with country music or out, is Hank Williams. There must be some great Hank Williams stories.
I used to run with him.
What's that story
We
about?
used to go out around here and drink and go to different clubs together and all. Hank was a real good friend of mine. I remember one time I was bringing him Ernest Tubbs record shop right across the street over here. And I was driving this Cadillac convertible of his, you know. And every time I hit a bump, it goes squeak, squeak. I said, Hank, this thing's got a squeak in it. He said, yes, you'd like to have one that squeaks like this, wouldn't you?
You know, I really think what's so great about Nashville and just getting a chance to do this, I really feel like we're just one big happy family, and we've been unhappy at times, but it's like everybody's always kind of stuck together. Everybody's been so supportive of everybody in Nashville.
I think that's one of the reasons that so many great songs have been spawned right here in Nashville, is the closeness of the people. And I think it's really a combination of all of these great minds working, and I know I've seen guys go in and help somebody else that maybe had a great song done except maybe 2 lines. And some guy would just, you know, offer them an idea, and they'd say, sure. And they'd say, well, let me give you part of it. No, I don't want it, you know. It's just like they shared that with each other. And I think that's really...
It's a great love. It's
where
like
greatness
We created a monster.
Every songwriter in town used to come down here. My Uncle Bill Owens here and me used to write all these songs. And Bill used to call me from down here and Toots drunk usually. But I got one of her songs cut, and one song was the song of the year that year. Bill Phillips here had the hit record on a song that me and Bill wrote called Put It Off Until Tomorrow. Do you still remember how that goes?
Well, let's try a little.
Yeah. I was doing the harmony on this, and my name wasn't on it as a singer. And that's also how I got my first big break. People were calling around saying, who's the girl singer on this record? So anyway, let's put it off until tomorrow. Oh, oh, you've hurt me enough today. Sing one of the verses.
You say our love is over, that you have found another.
One thing that everybody who used to hang out at Tootsie's had in common was a head full of dreams. You can tell by the pictures on the wall that a lot of those dreams have come true. Dreams are nothing without hard work and determination to back them up, and it sure helps to have people who believe in you. One person that always believed in me was my uncle, Bill Owens. Remember how I used to entertain all the kids? We used the porch for a stage, and I had a tobacco stick with a tin can on it, and I would sing through that, and the kids in the yard, and the pigs, and the hogs. Yeah, but we all did that. Do you remember the first time I was ever on the radio?
Yeah, the Kaz Walker's show. You was about 10 years old, and I was playing in some local bands. I come up to your house one night, and you was washing the dishes and singing. You sang all the time. You'd sing, go to bed and sing for the children. But I told you, I said, you sing good now. If you'll learn some songs, I'll take you to Kaz Walker and get you on the radio. And I'll give you 3 records to learn, and you learn all 3 of them that night. And we went down there, and sure enough, they put you on and liked you and give you a job.
But those were the good old days when times were bad and good. I was lucky to have people to help me through the bad times. My family was always there for me. And Carl and Pearl Butler took me in like I was one of their own. I also got some help from a giant in the business who became a good friend of mine, Chet Atkins. I never did tell you that you've truly been instrumental in my career, if you'll pardon the expression.
I'm an instrumentalist, you know.
You know, a lot of great music has been through this old console. Elvis recorded here, so did Eddie